Hi, I'm Lisa from Laurie's Country Cottage, and I'm here today to give you a demo on making a fast and simple face mask. There are so many patterns and options out there for face masks, with interfacing, without interfacing, using elastic, no elastic, with filters, without filters. So I'll let you do your research, decide what you want to make, and go ahead and adapt the pattern to what works for you. So we have for you the pattern piece. I suggest that you make 2 photocopies or trace. This pattern has 2 pieces, one for the main fabric, which is the full size, and one for the lining, which is this line here, a smaller piece for the lining. So go ahead and cut yourself your patterns out or trace them. If you're going to make a lot of masks, cut them out of template plastic or laminate them, then they'll last longer. So I've cut 2 of my main fabric, right sides together. You can cut them wrong sides together as well, as long as they're mirror image. And 2 of my lining fabric. And now we're ready to sew. All right, take your main fabric pieces, put them right sides together, matching your edges, and we're going to stitch the curved side. It's easier to stitch from your straight edge than the point, so go ahead and do that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Great, and do the same thing with your lining pieces, stitching that curved seam. Great. Now that my 2 pieces are together, I'm just going to quickly, because this is a curved edge, cut a couple snips into my seam allowance to help that seam open up. You can cut notches if you like, but if you just do it around the fullest part of the curve, it just helps it to lay flat, being careful not to stitch into your stitching. There we go. Now I'll turn it right sides out, and I like to give that seam a little press. When I made my first one, I made an effort to press that seam open, and I think it took me longer to press the seam than it does to make a whole mask, so I don't even worry about that now. I'm just helping that seam to lay flat. Now I'm going to take my 2 pieces, my main and my lining, put them right sides together, matching the center seam. So you see that the lining piece is shorter, and it's supposed to be that way. So with my center seams matched, I'm going to stitch that straight edge. And because we're going to turn this, I'm going to give it a little back stitch at the beginning and the end. Just take a second to line up that center seam and make my stitch bigger. I don't know why it's so small. There we go. And we'll do the same thing with our upper curved edge. Match that center seam all the way along. Go ahead and pin if you like, or use your Wonder clips. And again, I just give it a little back stitch, beginning and end, because we're going to put some pressure on that seam in a moment when we turn it right side out. Be a little bit careful not to pull these seams a lot. They are bias edges, so they'll stretch. Great. Now I'm simply going to turn it right side out. I like to use my purple thing to help with that curved seam, help it lay flat. Now over to my iron, and we're going to press that seam nice and flat. I love my little Oliso mini iron for these small projects. Don't need a giant iron. It certainly works good, but you don't need a giant iron for these little things. There we go. Excellent. So we've just created a nice flat seam there. There's the foundation of our mask. The next thing to do is to sew a casing for our elastic to go into. And I just like to give these little seam allowances a press flat. Makes it easier to turn. So all I do is turn in 3/8 of an inch, and again 3/8 of an inch. Grab a couple Wonder clips to hold it down, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. In 3/8, and then another 3/8. I didn't do a very nice job. Do that again. You can also press after the first fold. There we go. And back to the sewing machine. All I'm going to do now is create a casing for my elastic. So I'm just going to do an 1/8 inch seam right along the edge of my fabric. And the other side. And there's the foundation for my mask. I'm going to just take a second to clip those threads so they don't tickle me later. I did a little experimenting with the size of the elastic that I used. I started with 22 inches and I found it a little bit short, a little bit tight. So I've cut myself a 24-inch piece of 1/4 inch elastic. And I'm going to use a bodkin to slide this elastic through, but you can also use a safety pin. So it simply goes into the casing you've made. Leave yourself a little tail, and then feed the elastic up the other casing. We're going to make one piece of elastic for behind the head. I'll show you after how to make some adaptations if you don't have elastic. We have a very large order of elastic coming into the store. So if you'd like to call and reserve some elastic, you're welcome to do that. But in the meantime, we've found something else that also works, and it's just a substitution for this. So because I know this is the right size, I'm going to overlap about a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to stitch. If you're not sure if the size is correct, throw a safety pin in there, try it on, and then adjust as you can. So I'm just going to stitch my elastic together. Sometimes the trickiest part of a sewing project. Here we go. Whoop. And because quilters like to be neat, I'm going to pull that seam, the other way, inside my casing to hide it. Voila. All right. Here's how the mask works. I like to pull it all the way on, adjust it over my face, and then adjust the top elastic. Voila. That's your quick and simple face mask. If you're ready to get going and making your masks, and you don't have any 1/4 inch elastic, quilters always solve a problem. We've found that 1/2 inch strips of jersey work just as well for your masks. So you can simply cut bias strips down the middle of your fabric and easily replace it for the elastic. You will have to do some measuring and see how long of a strip you need. Or you can also make the the holders that go behind your ears with the jersey knit. So jersey knit needs to be cut on a 45-degree if you'd like it to be stretchy the right way and not wear out. We have luckily found in the store a jersey knit with a pattern that is running your bias or 45-degree. So with the fabric we have in the store, our pattern is actually a 1/2 inch apart. So you can use your rotary cutter or your scissors to cut 1/2 inch strips for your masks. If you have a jersey knit that doesn't have the lines already marked out for you, simply take your 6 or 6.5 by 24 inch ruler, and you have a 45-degree line on your ruler. Line that up with the straight edge of your fabric. And this is your 45-degree or biased edge cut. You can draw your lines or use the rotary cutter to cut. So I'm going to show you, once I make my first cut, I'll just pull that away so you can see. When I lay my ruler on, I'll measure my 1/2 inch and cut 1/2 inch strips. The longer strips are great for the one-piece elastic, and your shorter strips work good for the ear pieces. So do some trial and error and see what size works good for you. I'll show you how that works. So I hope we've been helpful today, showing you some different options for face masks. Thanks for joining us for the video.